final decision. I'll recognize the gentleman from Texas, emeritus of the full committee, on his reservation, and Mr. Barton is recognized for 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do reserve the right to object, and I do want to tell the gentlelady from Colorado, if we have a productive discussion about my reservation, I am very willing to withdraw the reservation, because I'm not at all interested in hiding any relevant information from the American public, and the way to get it in the public domain is to obviously put it into the record. I will start out by saying, after consulting with the majority counsel, it is clear to me that this is a key memo. It is also clear to me that the majority counsel had every intention to probably have, in fact I would say to definitely have, a hearing specifically on this memo, and that the minority counsel was made aware of that at least 2 to 3 weeks ago. There are apparently at least 2 memos that are identical in terms of content, with the exception of who they're addressed to. One memo is addressed to Secretary Chu from the General Counsel, and the other memo, and I think the memo that the gentlelady from Colorado wanted to put in the record, is a memo of counsel from a lady named Susan Richardson, who is the chief counsel of the Loans Program Office. The content, at least from what I can tell in trying to read both memos very quickly, is identical, but the salutation and the address are different, and that to me is somewhat puzzling. So at the appropriate time, I would hope that we would put both memos into the record if we're going to put one of them, the one addressed to the Secretary of Energy and the one also addressed to the General Counsel. The key part of the facts in the memo is on page 3, and it's got the paragraph headline is issue. And here's what I'm going to read it because I think it's important. The issue is whether the proposed subordination of certain of the borrower's reimbursement obligations to the DOE is consistent with subsection 702D3 of Title 17. This is of the Energy Policy Act of 2005, of which I was a conference chairman and the committee chairman that supported this provision and also supported the law. Subsection 1702D3 provides that the guaranteed obligation shall be subject to the condition that the obligation is not subordinate to other financing. I want to repeat that, Mr. Chairman. Subsection 1702D, subparagraph 3, provides that the guaranteed obligation shall be subject to the condition that the obligation is not subordinate to other financing. Not subordinate to other financing. That, to me, is explicitly clear. Now, here's the answer. That either Susan Richardson or the General Counsel, depending on which memo you decide to put in the record, here's the short answer to that question. The proposed subordination is permitted, Title 17. The subordination condition contained in subsection 1702D3 is by its terms applicable only as a condition precedent to the issue of the loan guarantee. Well, the question I would have for the author of the memo, Mr. Chairman, where does that come from? Under what fairy tale do they decide, after reading that the obligation is not subordinate, just out of the blue make the statement is applicable only as a condition precedent to the issuance? Now, as it turns out, Mr. Chairman, the reason that they answered that is that this memo was issued after Solyndra had already received some of its loan proceeds and was in default. So the department, this is an opinion on my part, I'm not saying it's a fact, but I think it's an informed opinion. The Department of Energy is looking for a reason to continue the loan and to restructure it, but they have a problem in that they can't subordinate it. And the only way to restructure it is if they can. So the rest of this memo, Mr. Chairman, goes through a convoluted explanation of why they think they can subordinate. And finally, on the bottom of page 6, in a footnote, number 2, they basically say, we think we can subordinate it because the Secretary of Energy has broad authority to do whatever he wants to do. That's not a real reasoned legal opinion, Mr. Chairman. So I would hope that we will find out how many of these memos are floating around, who actually authored them, have the staffs on both sides depose the authors, probably have a hearing specifically on this topic, and let's get to the bottom of it. Because it is clear to me that the Department of Energy violated the law when they agreed to subordinate the taxpayers' money to private investors, some of whom appeared to have been heavy contributors to President Obama's campaign. And I want to thank the gentlelady for wanting to put the memo in the record. It is one of the key, if not the key, documents, but we need to get all the facts on the table, not just this one document.
All right, thank the gentleman. I think what we're going to do here is have a